I hope everyone is comfortable in their chairs, on their beds, eating their favorite snacks, because I'm about to get started. If you can tell from the title, I'm going to be talking about nepotism babies and their absolute outrage of people knowing them and seeing them as nepotism babies. So, with that very vague summary, let me just get into it. So, a Vulture article came out recently and it made a bunch of nepotism babies in Hollywood, some well known and some more subtle, completely outraged. Now they're called out because they were called out. So, let me just first clarify what Google says nepotism is. Nepotism is the practice among those with power or influence of favoring relatives, but also friends or associates by giving them jobs and positions. Based on what I can tell, I see that nepotism babies are essentially getting mad for three main reasons. Some think people are calling their talent into question because of it. Two, some claim they straight up didn't use their parents as advantages and went through crazy lengths to make sure it wasn't the case. And three, they think it's not worthy of attention because one, who cares? And two, they know people will judge them as soon as they hear about it. As I normally do here. Here is my personal opinion that nobody asked for. People are ignoring nepotism guilt and struggles that a lot of nepotism babies bring up all the time is because nepotism babies are acting angry that people know about it and are acknowledging it. I can see why in some instances, but in most, I think the reason why people are so open about not caring as much about what they think about it is because how much they try to overly emphasize it to the wrong people, aka people who 100% have to work for acknowledgement and a chance that they could unconsciously get with just a phone call. So, depending on if you have a decent parent or not, I think it's absolutely crazy from the parent's perspective also, because imagine hearing about your child being mad that all the work you put forth in your career helped them out. Like, I feel like a lot of nepotism babies don't really acknowledge that even in their emphasis of their guilt and why they think they've earned everything they've worked for, they don't really understand how privileged it sounds in of itself, because to be very honest, there kind of is nothing wrong with nepotism babies in of itself. I mean, who are we gonna get, like, do they really think we're mad at their parents for having offsprings? That makes no sense. Why do you feel hurt and diminished because people are acknowledging that your parents' hard work could have possibly gotten you to where you are, or at least gotten you acknowledged in the first place, when most people may only be saying that to comfort themselves or other non-nepotism babies? I think a part of it on a certain level is ego that they unconsciously have. Because if you really think about the reason why these always get brought up, it's not to diminish anything that they've gone through. Obviously, there are nepotism babies that are super talented, gracious, and no one has a problem with them, like Drew Barrymore, Mariska Hargitay, Tracy Ellis Ross, Freddie Prinze Jr., Angelina Jolie, and Jamie Lee Curtis. But for Jamie Lee Curtis, she's had decades of work that she's been awarded for, and most people I've seen weren't even aware of her being a nepotism baby. So how on earth are people trying to diminish her talent by posting an article about the fact that there are nepotism babies in the world that should be acknowledged? Obviously, there is the case that people can genuinely see some decent people are good at their jobs after decades, because at some point your work and variety has to speak for itself. But the entire article is not to get on people, and that's the entire reason why I'm saying some of it has to do with ego. Because this article seems like it's more of a thing for people who are not nepotism babies to understand something about themselves and answer a question regarding why they believe something or why they may think they need to work a little harder for whatever they want in life. The purpose is not always to quote the obvious of you have to work a little harder than others. Forget nepotism, we can tell that by race. If the article was meant to just diminish people's talent, it wouldn't have mentioned all the amazing nepotism babies with talent or introduce a concept that most non-nepotism babies don't acknowledge, which is nepotism guilt and identity crisis that a lot of them go through because of their parents and all the extra work that they feel like they have to do mentally to stay confident in themselves and feel like they truly earned where they are in life. So, I mean, if you want to look at your privilege being brought up, even maybe after years of working, so you really don't have to explain yourself, which some people opted not to do, and people acknowledging you as them trying to diminish you, okay, you can stay there and believe that. But if you want to think about it from a different lens of people who don't have privilege, you can easily see it as people saying all these people had a leg up, so it's moot to try to compare your beginnings to theirs. But if you want to get a semblance of what they have or what their parents have to be able to have that type of life for yourself and also for your legacy, if they choose to have that type of career as well, you're going to have to work differently. You know how many people that were on that list, so many people that were in those pictures, and some people had no idea that they were nepotism babies and still idolized their career. And a lot of it has to do with people just truly not really understanding how deep and how far nepotism goes, or not realizing how subtle it can be. Like, yes, you have the more well-known examples, but you also have the more subtle examples in terms of parents' fame and also in terms of parents' jobs and positions. Some people don't know that because they don't understand what nepotism is, and they were still idolizing these people's careers until they finally saw this and decided to wake up. These are people who had opportunities that some were comparing to their own lives, not even knowing that it's kind of useless because they didn't grow up the same. So in general, I don't think that nepotism baby article was meant for nepotism babies. They're for people to acknowledge that obviously not everyone's path is the same, but it's also useless to try to compare yourself to certain people. Because while again, there are people who, even though they have these connections, have refused to use them and have even gone through great lengths to make sure that people did not use them, there are still some people that entirely got to where they are from a phone call because they knew that it would be 100% easier than doing any work to start a foundation by themselves. Not saying that they didn't earn where they are 20 years after the fact, or that they didn't work to keep up that foundation after, but they did automatically have one, and that is entirely the point. So, I hope that you got through all of this. Thank you for spending time here. Hopefully I made sense. Hopefully you guys reply in the comments if you agree. If you don't agree, just let me know how you're feeling. And I release content whenever. I hope your day or night is amazing. Bye!